Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, a podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Meslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Judy Cho is returning to the Carnivore Cast. If you missed our first and second episodes together, definitely please go check them out. And they're two of my personal favorites, where we talked about Judy's personal nutrition journey, digestion and gut health on carnivore, feeding her kids keto, Carnivore 75 hard, and more. Judy is a nutritional therapy practitioner certified by the Nutritional Therapy Association, living in Austin, Texas. She follows a carnivore diet and feeds her kids keto. Judy believes in holistic health and functional nutrition. I love Judy's science-based and practical infographics and videos that she shares on her Instagram at Nutrition with Judy and her YouTube channel. And Judy is the author of an upcoming book, The Carnivore Cure, the ultimate elimination diet to attain optimal health and heal your body. Lastly, Judy works with clients by focusing on the root cause of an array of health struggles. And Judy helped me tremendously with my own gut health issues. And I was really impressed by her professional experience and personalized approach. So super happy and thrilled to have you back on the show, Judy.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Scott.
Of course. So let's talk about you. What's changed for you since Carnivore 75 hard, both personally and professionally?
Yeah. So it's funny. It's been pretty much a year since I've talked to you about Carnivore 75 hard. I mean, that kind of movement took on its own life. You know, it's funny because I started it, so I thought I would, really just hone down and work on Carnivore Cure over the holidays and just stay focused. And then it took a life of its own. And so instead of supporting me to write the book, I just had a pause on the book and just help support the community with Carnivore 75 hard. And it's great. I mean, it's really grown. It's kind of its own living thing now. We made it a free community program, so you can just sign up and then you can see the courses and sort of how to start implementing carnivore and doing the five daily wins. And then there's a Facebook group of nearly 4,000 people now. And it's just really a very kind of well-oiled machine now on its own. And it's, doing well. I see people post their daily wins. And so ever since then, I've just now been really focusing on finishing up Carnivore Cure, which I have, and working with a lot of meat-based clients. And so I think when I first came on here, I was pretty new to meat-based clients. I was, doing the whole nutritional therapy support, but now with so much experience and kind of under my belt, I have a kind of different point of view, I think, of how carnivore can help people. I still think it's a very meat heals type of diet, but sometimes we need to personalize carnivore. And as I work with more and more people, I'm seeing that really holds true.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways in which you think carnivore needs to be personalized, or you found that carnivore needs to be personalized for folks?
Sure. So one thing I would say is I think most people say, hey, my gut has healed on carnivore and now I have no bloat, I have no gas, just digestive health is really great. But then they'll say other things like, if I eat too much rendered fat, or if I eat too much fat in one meal, I will have the runs. And so before I thought, okay, yeah, if you can't tolerate rendered fats, listen to your body. But what I realize now is that as we heal our gut, you should really be able to eat even like 85% fat in terms of total calories in a day and still be able to tolerate that level of fat. And if you can't, it's probably because something in the gut health, maybe your gallbladder is not producing enough bile, or your liver is not supporting it, or your stomach is not emptying out as quickly. And so that can cause some of these loose stools, or it could even be electrolytes. But whenever there is a symptom, I really believe now that there's still a root cause that's not being addressed. And so sometimes I've realized a lot of my clients will feel really good initially on carnivore. And then as they kind of coast for maybe about 6 months, maybe 4 months, and then they start noticing that some of the issues start coming back. And for me, what I've noticed is as I work with them, do this thing that I call a symptom burden assessment. Sometimes they do like hair mineral tests, other functional tests, and then we notice that they still have some gut healing to do. So what carnivore ends up doing is it's almost like a Band-Aid in a sense of it masks that since you're not eating any trigger foods, you feel pretty good, right? Maybe you still have the histamine intolerances, and that's an indication again that your gut may still need a little bit more support. And so that's when we get to dig another step deeper and do some gut healing. And so I think when people are 6 months in, they're like, I didn't lose a lot of weight. I noticed that I don't feel as good as I used to. And so carnivore is not for me. I would really counter that and say, maybe you're actually that much closer to root cause healing and do a little bit more homework. And maybe you can actually fully heal. And then if you want to introduce carbs or plants or what have you, then you could do it knowing that you've truly healed.
Yeah.
So that's one. Go ahead.
That's a great one. And I think I was suffering from some of that. I wasn't having loose stools, but I did have indigestion and a lot of like gas and bloating, especially when trying to consume large amounts of fat, even solid fat, not rendered fat.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the others?
Yeah. So the other one I would say is, just listening to people that have done carnivore for a really long time, this sort of mantra is, and I think it was a mantra even a few years ago, but it's, just eat 2 pounds of meat. And if you're not feeling well, if you have cravings, just keep eating more meat and keep eating more. And so I bought into that too, honestly. And as I was going through my own journey, I noticed that it wasn't really working for me. So I thought maybe it's because I was plant-based for like 12 years, had no meat. And so maybe that's why my blood glucose is going up to diabetic levels after a large meal. Maybe it's the OMAD, right? So I thought, hey, if I just eat OMAD, if I just have one meal a day, then I'm disrupting insulin less. So it's better than having 2 meals. And all of those things did not work for me. And so as I started kind of rebalancing, so maybe having 2 meals a day now. And instead of having 2 pounds, I just do like the 0.8 grams of protein per 1 pound of ideal weight. And sometimes 1 gram of protein per ideal weight. That ends up for me being closer to like 1 pound. And so when I do 1 pound with about 75% fat, maybe sometimes 80, maybe sometimes 70, I felt so much better. And then breaking up my meals was a tremendous benefit too. And so as I worked with more clients, I was seeing it again and again and again. So most of my clients, the number one complaint they have is the loose stools, even after 6 months of carnivore. And then the second thing is my energy is dwindling. What's going on? So initially I felt good. And now sometimes some of the people are like, I can't even keep my eyes open. And so I have them check their glucose for a week and I make them do blood checks. And then they notice, I'm still diabetic or I'm pre-diabetic. What is going on? And then we shift their macros. And I'm telling you, within 3 months, they're finally sleeping through the night and a lot of their issues resolve. And so to me, I really believe I think you can eat too much protein. If you eat in excess, if your gut is not good and you're not breaking down the amino acids and your amino acids are not being, used well, then I think you can have an excess that can cause issues for you and that can cause fatigue or, all these other things. And so, I don't think for many people, the 2 pounds works, especially for women that have been metabolically damaged or have had hormonal health issues.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I fully agree. Some of these like copy and paste recommendations aren't great. And that's why I always tell people like, experiment, try what works for you, like try higher fat, try higher protein, try more food, less food, fewer meals, more meals. Like it's good to have a starting place. Right. But if you're just trying to do someone else's version of the carnivore diet or any diet, it's not gonna be the best thing for you.
Right. And, I thought the power of anecdotal stories was really strong, and it is for sure, because that's how communities are built, right? So they pass down generations of stories and learning lessons, and all of those things are important. But as I wrote the book and just was doing a lot more research, working with a lot more clients and even my own journey, and now I'm just coasting on carnivore, and I've been carnivore for 2.5 years now. And I don't ever eat 2 pounds of meat now. And if I do, I just, I need to take a nap, and I just see my blood glucose rise and all these things. And so I've learned that it's okay if I want to, go against, the norm and, say something that may not agree with the entire carnivore community. And I'm okay with that. I just have gotten to a point where I think personalized carnivore makes a lot more sense. I know people want to believe in the silver bullet of carnivore is so easy. You just eat meat and water and you will heal everything. You will have this great energy. All your metabolic disease will go away. And while it's true to an extent, if you have any underlying disease that you started with, and most carnivores do, because honestly, who wants to give up everything and just eat meat, right? So often people that come, other than the biohackers, let's say, and that, want to live forever. But most people, it's because everything else has not worked. And so they're willing to try just meat to hopefully get better. And initially they may, but over time they just don't feel well. And I think that's when, instead of just, white knuckling it or gritting your teeth, look to see what else is going on. And then you can then heal. And then as you heal, then really meat plus water can do wonders.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Completely agree with that. And what inspired you to write the book, Judy, and who's it for?
Sure. So let's see. So, when I was doing a lot of my graphics, a lot of people would say, oh, it's very helpful. And I realized, okay, so graphics plus text and, breaking down science into bite-sized pieces is really helpful. But then as, I've been online for about 2.5 years now, or maybe 2 years, but I noticed that I would get the same questions over and over. And, no matter how much content you put out there, everything is not read, everything is not learned. And so I just figured, you know what, I started writing a blog post on cholesterol, and then it became really long to explain it. I did the same thing with artificial food dyes. And then I think it just became this, I'm just going to write a book, because now if people ask me, well, I want to start carnivore, people are saying, well, where are you going to get your antioxidants or your fiber or your vitamin C? What about your cholesterol? And now if I just have one place that they can go to, it's just so much easier. And so the book is really for pretty much everyone. So you can use it as an elimination protocol. So if you have autoimmune or you have these serious diseases where even using a little bit of seasoning will be detrimental for your health, then you can try this. There's a protocol in there of start with these meats. And then as you find your baseline, meaning that you don't really have any symptoms, you're not reacting, you're not getting any skin responses or gut issues, then you can move on to the following week and so on and so forth. And then there's a reintroduction phase. And so I talk through how you can reintroduce some of the meats that you may have had a sensitivity to. And then eventually, then you could even try plants if you so choose. So so one group can be the seriously ill that want to do like a really clean, strict elimination diet. And then it's for beginners where, hey, I just want to figure out what I'm supposed to eat. There are sections on that, like how much to eat and drink. There's, concerns about like hormones and zero carb. What else can I change in my lifestyle to improve my overall health? And then there's also the fine tuning, right? So this is the people that are already carnivore, but maybe it's not fully working right. So if they're still waking up in the middle of the night, in my opinion, that's still, you're not at optimal health. You should not be waking up in the night at all. And so that could be stress related. It could be too much protein. It could be, you need a little bit more gut support. So yes. So yeah, there's in the book, there will be like little nuggets of nutrition with Judy tips or did you know tips, and it just gives you little pieces of information, right? For example, one thing I say is if you know that you have a mold toxicity or you're sensitive to mold or you suffer from it before, maybe you shouldn't eat these certain foods because they have higher likelihood of having a little bit of mold on it. So there's little nuggets like that. So as you are trying to fine tune or personalize carnivore, all of that information is there. And then if you're concerned about, well, but plants are good for us, and what if I just eat organic plants? I talk about organics and how they use multiple times the amount of pesticides, even if they're natural. And so the question is, okay, fine, it's not glyphosate or the GMO toxins, but when they have to spray these multiple times a day, plus use 4, 5, 6 times the amount, is it still safe, right? And then I talk about certain ones that are so good that they now make a non-organic version because it kills the pesticides so well. So that's a chapter I talk about the bioavailability of proteins and fats. You can say, well, soy has enough protein or pea protein is so good for you, but I talk about why that may not be true. And then, like the nutritional values of meats. And then if you, again, are concerned about, well, my LDL might go up and therefore I'm going to have a cardiovascular risk, I talk about how that's not necessarily true in context. And so it's a lot. And so this book is actually really big. I think of it more as a reference book. So you can kind of read through everything, see the pictures, see the graphics and tables. And then now if you have a question. So if you're in your 20s and you don't really care about the menopause hormones section, well, you can always go back when you are going through menopause and then read and see the citations I bring up. And then you can kind of research it then as you are going through that period.
A lot of people ask me about how to make liver more tasteful and how to cook it or incorporate other organ meats on carnivore. Optimal Carnivore can help you do just that with their grass-fed organ complex. It was created by carnivores for carnivores. They start by sourcing 100% grass-fed organ meats from New Zealand, gently freeze-drying the organs and encapsulating them into convenient bovine gelatin capsules. Just 6 of these capsules a day is the same as eating an ounce of raw organ meat. I personally take these every single day, as does my wife. Even though we both eat liver and other organ meats, our ancestors would have eaten the whole animal. And this unique blend has 9 different organs, including beef liver, brain, thymus, kidney, spleen, etc. And I think it's great to get a daily dose of these organs when you can. So it covers all your bases, whether you're at home or traveling. What's also cool is they plant a tree for every product sold, which helps the environment. So visit www.optimalcarnivore.com/carnivorecast and use the code carnivore10 to receive 10% off your purchase. Thanks, and back to the show. I read through the chapter list and some of the subtopics under each, and it seems like it's really comprehensive.
Yes.
And some of the chapters that really caught my eye were the ones around preparing plant-based foods. I thought that was really interesting, something that other carnivores probably wouldn't talk about. How much to eat and drink, which is really common question I get. And you mentioned intuitive eating, the carnivore diet and hormones, and then food reintroduction and other lifestyle changes. I think those are all really interesting and unique topics that haven't been addressed as much in other carnivore books I've read. And I think you'll have some great perspectives to share in all of those. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, even with the, going to the macros that we were just discussing, the how much to eat and drink, I know it sounds so basic, but I talk about kind of the general rule of thumb about hydration when it comes to water and electrolytes. And, I see, for example, that a lot of people supplement with potassium, and there's a lever in our bodies where if there's too much sodium in the cells, the potassium will increase and vice versa. And it's just when we mess with these electrolytes that can actually cause, significant damage, it's just kind of risky. And so I would say 90% of my clients get off potassium when they first start with me, and they just start using a little bit of salt in the morning. And then they kind of even taper off that and they just salt their meats. And they're maybe using magnesium spray if they get leg cramps at night. And then that's it. They don't need any other electrolytes because they're allowing their body to find its balance. And so these are really important things to kind of consider. They're kind of talked about. I also talk about how, like, if you are very adrenally taxed, where you're just really high stress, maybe you have metabolic disease of diabetes, and now you're trying to taper off the sugars, then you may just have high potassium that's within your body just because of the adrenals like to hold on to sodium and potassium. I mean, these are all things that I know some people can say, oh, this is a lot of information. But when carnivore is not working for you, that's when these little tidbits will be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these details and like troubleshooting can be so important for people. And I guess one general question I had is, outside of the FAQ question, how did questions you get from either clients or people on Instagram or followers of your content inform the chapters you planned?
I guess, I kind of wanted to make this a holistic book. And so I just thought about, okay, if I was starting the diet, like what all do I need in context? And so I try to incorporate all of that. And then same with as I was going through my own journey and then all my clients, what are some of the issues? And I'm telling you, as I work with more, especially, and it's interesting, a lot of the women health concerns are a little different than the men. And so like men, for example, can eat a lot more meat. And I notice their body is a little bit more tolerant. But for women, that's not as much the case, especially if they had hormone issues. And so I just try to cover a little bit of everything that I was seeing. And so, I mean, just again, to make it very comprehensive, the FAQ was just the most common questions I'd always get. So there's a whole chapter, simple answers, but, like how do you deal with social anxiety? And then I bring up, maybe you shouldn't bring it up, right? And people are automatically very self-absorbed. And so they're not going to be asking you, wait, why are you just eating meat, right? They probably won't even notice if you don't even bring it up. And so there's all these other questions, what do I do with electrolytes? Where can I get this type of meat, that type of meat? And because the book is already long enough, one other big, tremendous benefit of the book is there are, I think, like 15 other outside resource guides that come with this book. So in every section, you'll see a link to go to carnivorecure.com/something. And then there you can either pick up like a detox support guide, blood work that I recommend that you get as a carnivore. And then there's a bunch. I mean, there's literally like 15 of them. So it's just more information. So if, you're ready to kind of digest that level, there's also that as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. And just because I'm like super curious, can we dig into one of these chapters?
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the other lifestyle changes outside of carnivore and maybe like how you would rank them in terms of importance for someone who's already doing pretty well on a carnivore diet, but wants to improve their health generally?
Yeah. So I think the biggest things I would have to say is sleep is really, really huge. So there are studies, and I think I cite one of these in the book, but there's a study where if you don't sleep for just one day and you're just functioning off like maybe 1 or 2 hours of sleep, if you check your glucose that day, you're probably running higher. So your cortisol is trying to keep you up to kind of survive. And so if you are chronically undersleeping, and so again, for some reasons of why you're not sleeping well, you should try to figure the root cause of that. But over time, it will definitely affect your sleep. And so I have some tables in this chapter where it shows how sleep can impact cortisol and then all the things that cortisol can do negatively to your body. So it can make you gain weight. It could damage your hormones. It could just negatively impact your health. So even if you're eating a meat-based diet and your sleep is not good, which then can also affect your gut health, if your gut health is not good, you're not going to break down your meats and fats into the amino acids and fat that you need to then, fuel your body. Another one I talk about is fasting. And so I am very aware that some people don't do well with fasting. As I've done more research into like hair mineral testing, there are some people that just can't fast because they're fast metabolizers or, they're the lean mass hyper responders. So depending again, and this is where personalized carnivore comes in again, but if you've had an eating disorder and so you're fasting just to compensate for overeating in a meal, or you are just doing it because other people say it's good, but you feel horrible, then I have all these disclaimers, but then I talk about the power of fasting, right? So the benefits of cleaning up your cells. And I have a graphic about all the different kinds of cells and apoptosis and nephrosis. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but all of these things, how they benefit. And, as we take breaks from fasting, how these are really beneficial for our health. And, one thing I brought up is if you are consuming so much in one meal, then do you ever trigger autophagy? And I talk about kind of what triggers autophagy. And some of it's just with the whole AMPK and all those other factors. If you are eating too much and it takes your body forever to digest those things, you may actually never turn on autophagy. So it's just something to consider when I see people eating like 4 or 5 pounds of meat or eating just in excess. I don't know if we're supposed to be eating that much, right? So it's just something to consider. It's something I brought up in the fasting. There's also exercise. I'm not a big fan of excess exercise. I cite in the book that there are studies with ultra marathon runners. And I know we have one in our community that's, does really well. But in general, there are studies that show excess running in marathons, doing like CrossFit excessively will be a huge tax on your adrenals. It's kind of like that hormesis where now the excess is too much. So now the good is no longer outweighing the bad. And so I talk about how we need exercise for our bone health and movement in general. Our lymph nodes, for example, our lymphs, we don't have a pump to have our lymphs move around, whereas our blood has our heart. So jumping, doing a little bit of jumping jacks or rebounding, all these things are so good to get the lymphs flowing so that there's movement. So I'm not a big fan of excess cardio and too much of it, but I am definitely a fan of heavy lifting to build your muscles and do that type of hormesis on the body. I also talk about meditation. There are studies done where the telomere, the end caps are grown by just meditating. And so there's a fascinating study that if you just meditate by a little bit, it shows that you can actually increase your longevity in just a very short time. And so if you're a biohacker, these things kind of fascinate you, then why wouldn't you incorporate meditation when it's such a small nuance that you can actually literally improve your telomere lifeline? I also talk about EMF toxins and how, there's not too much research right now, but, and I have this one graphic that's really eye-opening about how much more, Wi-Fi and EMFs we have around us. And so what does it mean when we're having 5G? And, like my kids, I don't let them use a lot of the Wi-Fi. There's like kid watches that can show their heart rate, and I don't let them wear it. And I like refuse to wear ear pods that are Wi-Fi, right? Because again, you're getting the toxin straight into your head. And then this is a reason, and I talk about this also in the book, but this is one of the reasons I'm not a fan of the CGMs. I think it's great data. I don't think someone should be wearing it. So if you're type 1, maybe you need it because, obviously that's the lifesaver. But if you're type 2 and you use it for a 2-week course, fine, then you kind of get a pulse of what's going on even while you're sleeping. But if you think about it, it's an EMF that you're plugging into your body and it's constantly reading it. So you're getting a constant dose of EMFs. And what does that mean, right? And the thing is, we just don't know enough, but it's concerning, right? So I talk about some of those studies, and then I talk about connection in terms of, how important it is we are naturally people that need one another, whether we are kind of introverted or not, we still need that level of connection. And so I talk about the importance of that. And then really finding a purpose, right? So there are so many studies, even in social psychology, that's something I studied in school, but they talk about how once you make a certain amount of money, it really doesn't matter if you make more because it will not bring you happiness, right? So if you make $2-3 million compared to somebody that's just making that minimum that required for, basic living, there's not a big difference. And so then what really causes happiness, right? So it's just something to really consider. And I can tell you personally, like it's not money. In consulting, I lived a lavish lifestyle, but I was very depressed and every day was very hard to get up. And for me personally, and based on the research, it's giving back and doing ultimate good for society, having a greater purpose than myself, than just my kids and my family. And that for me is what gets me going. Sorry, I always get so emotional with this, but it's like what drives me, right? It's like if I can give back and someone reads the book and they can help their family and their family then can help someone, it's this like cascading effect of people healing. And that's true purpose. And that can bring you happiness, right? Because I'm helping others, but I'm also helping myself. So yeah, this is the whole section of lifestyle, which I thought was really important. My editor was like, you need to take this out, but I was like, I'd rather keep it in. So yeah, so that's the lifestyle section. It's pretty long.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And I think you just elevated this podcast, Judy, to a whole new level. No, that's really cool. I can't wait to read that section, and hearing your passion for what you do and how you help people is really inspiring.
Thank you.
Shifting topics a little bit. Can we talk a little bit about food reintroduction?
Yes.
Past carnivore, who is it for? Who needs to and who could reintroduce other foods? And what instances may you want to or need to reintroduce some plant foods to a carnivore diet?
Sure. So I have a YouTube series where I was interviewing a microbiologist, and he talks about how as a carnivore, if you want to get all the nutrients, get all the good gut bugs, a key element may be to like drink the blood of the animal or eat, literally from head to toe of the animal. But a lot of us are not doing that. And, one compelling argument he makes is that as our DNA only can hold so much data, a lot of the information then our bodies naturally we outsourced it to get some of the nutrients. So that's why we have essential nutrients, essential vitamins and minerals that we have to get in our foods, otherwise we can't survive. And so his argument is that sometimes we need to get some of the microbes from the outside world for our gut health. And so as we get it from the outside, so if you use probiotics, for example, and you kind of support your gut, especially if you've been taking antibiotics, especially if you ate a lot of GMO foods that use glyphosate, which is an antimicrobial, then taking probiotics will be beneficial. And then when you're at that state where, let's say you've taken probiotics, you've eaten a lot of meat and you feel consistent day to day, then a way to see if your gut or your health is resilient is to slowly reintroduce some vegetables. And so I have a list of the safest top 10 and my reasoning for why these plant foods are the safest. And then I talk through how to do the reintroduction. So obviously, if you eat all of a sudden a bowl of broccoli, even if you're tolerant to it, you will not feel well, right? Because your gut microbiome is not used to that. You're not used to that fiber and all the greens. And so you will feel bloated. But I explain how to, one, do the elimination. So start with certain foods, get to a point of baseline, and then you can start doing the reintroduction. And then maybe you start with like one sliver of a broccoli and make sure to cook it and boil it so that half of the glucosinolates are removed. And so, then some of the anti-nutrients are removed, and then see how it works. And then you can introduce it at dinner and then do it again for the next few days. And I explain how to do it from, the beginning to end and just how you can reintroduce. There's a calendar of kind of what to expect. So, you may need to do each reintroduction for about 5 days. And I get it. It's very cumbersome. That can, if you think about it, if you want to add just 10 foods, that's 50 days. But, the argument I make in the book is as you are at your baseline, then you can really figure out what foods you're truly tolerant to, what you may not be, or what you may not be yet. But at least you kind of know what really works and doesn't for you. And then you never have to guess again, like what foods am I reacting to, right? You don't have to take these food sensitivity tests, which are so inaccurate anyway. And then you never have to worry about it again. So do the due diligence for about a year, and then you can kind of have food freedom and then figure out, okay, maybe I want to eat vegetables. Maybe it's not ideal for me, but hey, I want variety and this is real life, right? So that's kind of where I want people to get to. And most people may just stay on meat, and that's great. But again, it's just giving people the option that, hey, this is not a like lifelong sentence, or you just have to eat meat forever, or, it's just, my hope is that people can try this. And I bet that most people will stay meat-based, but, and they'll learn so much about some of the plant toxins and how actually the whole environmental argument against meat is not necessarily true. All of that's there. And then if they want to then add a few vegetables, they can comfortably without worrying too much. One thing I'll say is in the book, I only bring up about 10 of the safest plants that I would recommend starting with, but I have a whole database. So, and I'm still working on it. It's not ready, but I think there's about 500 different foods. And if you can imagine, the left side, the rows are basically all the different foods. And then going across, if you think of this as an Excel spreadsheet, then think of all the right columns being all the different things. So it could be FODMAP, AIP, so autoimmune paleo. And then it's all the anti-nutrients. So oxalates, lectins, and, so on and so forth. And so there's a long list of columns as well. And then based on each plant, you can see then from the research I found thus far, what this food is a kind of no to, and then what it's okay for. So then you can really personalize your plant list, because the reality is that all plants have anti-nutrients. So there is no plant I could recommend and say, this plant is so safe for you, because it really depends on you, right? So if you're metabolically challenged, then maybe fruit doesn't work for you. But if you don't have metabolic issues and you aren't allergic to salicylates, maybe fruit is okay for you, right? So that's what that database will show.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I'm a huge fan of doing that slow reintroduction method you talk about, Judy, because just as you said, it may seem painful and tedious and slow to some, but to really know like what foods make you feel great and what don't is so valuable. And you have that for forever. Like it might change for some people, but it's really, really valuable information. So actually I went through this over the past year, and my wife, Marissa, has most recently done this. And the approach we took, very similar to yours, slightly different, is we take one food and we do 3 days of having one serving of it each day.
Okay.
And then we do a day off and then start with another food. And if that food passed, that would stay in. To the extent she wanted to. And she rated each food she tried on, how did it affect my digestion? How did it help me in terms of like satisfying a craving or making my meal feel more complete, or just like mental kind of satisfaction? Then how much did it improve my satiety in terms of fullness?
Oh, that's good.
And so she did that rating each day for each food. And we went through, we did apples, strawberry, not necessarily in this order, but apples, strawberries, zucchini, cauliflower, mushrooms, yogurt, lactose-free yogurt, lactose-free cream cheese, and a few others. And popcorn was one. And she learned a lot about foods that she was strict carnivore for digestive reasons primarily. And she learned a lot about not only foods that she had a lot of the same fears about, how will this hurt my digestion? Will this dysregulate my blood sugar? Will it make me feel like some sugar rush? Will it drive my cravings out of control? And coming from a place of pure animal foods and mostly meat, it was hard to do that for her. But now having like a half a cup of strawberries every morning with her breakfast really helps satisfy a sweet craving and makes her feel full, and like supplements an otherwise 100% carnivore diet really, really well for her. And by doing this systematic approach, she was able to discover that. And, similarly, she can tolerate certain vegetables really well and others not so well. So I think it's super valuable, and I'd highly encourage people to try it.
Yeah. And that's the goal, right? So the goal is not that you are, that you're kind of confined to a certain amount of meats, right? So I would hate for people to just say, I'm thriving on carnivore, but I can only eat beef, and I can only eat beef if it's straight fresh from the butcher, and I can only eat, XYZ. And it's a disservice to yourself. So then how would you ever travel or vacation? Are you going to bring your beef? You know what I mean? So it's just, let's get to root cause healing. And then from there, if you want to start reintroducing and do the ones that make sense for your kind of bio-individual person, then, do that. And yes, they do recommend kind of 3 days is the minimum, but I just try to make it a little bit safer and do the 5 and just kind of increase your dosage over time to really test if it's doing okay for you. And, I think it's really smart that she kind of categorized and labeled things, because I also offer a food and mood journal as part of one of the bonus guides. And it doesn't have those kind of ratings, but it's a blank sheet essentially, right? So you can then put in the food you want and then categorize or define it however, whatever kind of symptom or thing that you're looking for to have it satiate you, right? So I think that's really smart what she did. I wouldn't have started with those certain foods, but again, this is very bio-individual, right? So if she went through kind of like my plant toxin database, maybe she's like, it doesn't matter if I use strawberries, right? Like those actually work really well for me. And so I'm good with it.
Yeah. And like you said, then you have that data forever, right? Whatever you choose to journal on. That's awesome. Well, Judy, this has been fantastic. Great chatting with you as always. I am super excited for the book. I think so many people are going to benefit from it. I can't wait to read it. Where can people follow along with you? I'll have links to everything in the show notes and on my website, carnivorecast.com. But where can they find out more about you?
Sure. So first of all, for the book, I don't know when this will air, but if you buy it before December 2nd, the paperback is available on carnivorecure.com. And if you buy during the pre-sale period, you will get extra bonuses that are not available once the book goes live. And then you can get the ebook through Amazon right now too. And then if you just send us like a copy of your purchase, then we'll also provide you those bonuses. And then once the book goes live on December 2nd, you can buy both the book, the paperback, as well as the ebook on Amazon. I do recommend people getting the paperback just because it's such a good flip through book. I mean, almost every other page at least will have some type of call out box of like nutritional tidbit or graphic or table that's just useful. And it's just something so easy to kind of flip through rather than having to scroll through. But, you know, I mean, again, somebody can argue that you can do a search function too, though. So yeah. And then in terms of me, I am pretty booked right now in terms of clients, but, you know, I'm always having open door, and it just might be that I can't meet you for a month or so, but you can find all my services at nutritionwithjudy.com. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram, and my handle is nutritionwithjudy.
Awesome. Well, I'll certainly have links to all that. And
thank you.
Thanks so much again for your time, Judy. Great chatting with you.
Thanks for having me again, Scott.
Of course. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered? Or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Carnivore Cast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.